Hello, and welcome along to episode 1 of the Dragon Keepers.
Hey.
All I want from you is the name of the character you're playing, please. Today I have playing with me, Michaela.
Hi, I am playing Willow, aka Twiggy.
I have Jay.
Hi, that's me, and I'm playing Arya.
I have Josh.
I'm Josh, and I will be playing Patrick.
I have Jamal.
Hey guys, it's Jamal, and I'll be playing Emil.
And I have Alora.
I'm Alora, and I'll be playing the Tawny.
Cool. And that's pretty much all that we know about their characters for now. And we begin in a town called Treehog. Treehog is a beautiful wilderness of pods and walkways between huge trees in the jungle. With the river being acidic and regularly rising and breaking its banks, the land being a boggy marsh that often gives way to that water, with regular tremors and earthquakes in the ground, it's pretty difficult to do anything on the ground. There are very few animals that live on the ground, and for the most part, people spend their time above ground, usually on the trees. There are, however, a few places where you can enter into dug-down cities below. This is very dangerous, as there are earthquakes and various other tremors and problems. But there is what is known as an elderling city underneath the city of Treehawk. Deep underneath the river and riverbanks and marshland is the city of Frengong, and the source of the endless wealth, it seems, of the Rain Wilders. They've been selling their goods downriver to Bingtown for many years. And still they have not uncovered all of Frengong's earthquakes and tremors, unveil certain areas, and understanding of the memories within the city allows traversal to other chambers. I think most of you are from Treehawk. In fact, I think 4 out of 5 of you are from Treehawk. Apart from Jay, any discrepancy with that? Great. Yeah, so you'll mostly know that the lower down you live, the richer you are, unless it's on the ground, at which point you have no money at all. So the sturdiest and largest buildings are built around the sturdiest and largest parts of the tree trunks, the base. The higher up you get, the more chance there is that your house moves in the earthquakes, or in fact just moves in the wind if you're high enough up. And if you're really broke, you hang from a pod from one of the smaller branches, usually big enough for 1 or 2 rooms. Some houses are made up, houses inverted commas, are made up of 3 or 4 different pods, with a little walkway connecting them in up and down branches. If you are really poor, you don't live in the tree hog itself, but you live in a pod hanging off a littler tree elsewhere, which is susceptible to potentially fall in the water, etc. At the very base are the most notorious buildings: the town council hall, a couple of... Oh, Michaela looked so shocked, I thought that I'd broken. Your cam just... like, it looked like it was frozen. There's also a place for eating, and a couple of sort of shops. There's artisans' halls higher up, but for the most part, the biggest problem in the Rainwilds is food. There is very little to hunt for. There is nothing you can grow at all. A few weirdos have tried experiments. Some of the druids of the land, swamp, if you would like to know, do attempt to grow food sort of on the branches with little mud packs and stuff, and seeds sent from the south. But for the most part, the effort put into growing them is not worth it for the amount of food they produce. The climate here is humid and misty. And it is here that we begin our tale. And we begin our tale with Michaela. Michaela, tell us a little bit about who you are playing. What do they look like? Whereabouts do they live? What are they like?
Sure. So my character is named Willow Branch, Twiggy to her friends. She is a halfling with always very unkempt looking, I would say very wild hair, always full of plants, leaves, twigs, flowers, and so she lives with her dad, who is one of those aforementioned druids. So maybe on I don't know where the druids would live, but yeah.
Anywhere and everywhere, they tend to be pretty poor, badly paid, and regarded as a bit odd.
Yeah, not one of the rich folk by any means, but she enjoys, running around the trees and nature. Causing problems generally is kind of her thing lately. She is a teenager and is, naturally going through a bit of a rebellious phase right now. So yeah, she's not maybe super popular with the more, let's say, put together people in town.
And recently the call has gone out for volunteers to help us escort a group of dragons further to the north to the mythical city of Kelsingra. No one knows where Kelsingra is, or in fact even what it is, although it's thought it might be an Eldling city. Nobody who's gone north past Kasserek has ever come back. The volunteers sort of... It's decent pay, but the way the writing is in the contract, it's pretty obvious that they don't expect these explorers to come back. Why on earth would Twiggy accept such an invitation?
It sounds like a suicide mission. So Twiggy is very, let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? Impulsive? She wants to explore and run around and see more of the world, and is feeling maybe a bit stifled here in Treehouse, and is also feels outcast, I would say, looked down upon, so she kind of leans into that. And if people... Oh, I didn't even mention her parents were tattooed, but she does not have the facial tattoos, but she does have tattoos on her arms, kind of to harken back to her parents' heritage. She really leans into that bad reputation, and I think just wants to be somewhere else, away from the people looking down on her.
Yeah. As it is the morning of where the volunteers have been asked to gather, and you gather indeed outside the Rain Wild Council Hall. As you look around, you will swiftly see that everybody there doesn't seem to have anyone with them. There are no parents or guardians or anything like that. There's a few people milling about. A couple of the more touched or Rain Wild touched scaled folk. But one in particular stands out to you. They are completely not scaled in any way whatsoever. But the tattoo, specifically the spider tattoo across his face, and his penchant for getting into trouble, means you've probably crossed paths with him before. Known to most as Tats, he's been alone in the Rain Wilds most of his life. He's a young human, perhaps 16, 17, and he sort of gives you a shy sort of half wave as you arrive, and so looks
I
over.
give him a big wave, drawing attention. And I'll hurry over to him.
As you do so, a couple of the posher-looking folk who are clearly not there to volunteer, but are instead there here to witness the scene, sort of shake their head or tut at your inclusion. But Tats sort of hey Twiggy.
Hey.
You signed up?
Of course. Think I'm gonna stick around this piss hole?
I didn't think anyone else would be tattooed. And I know you're not you're kind of not, but you know us folk. Most of us get ignored, and as you can see, and he sort of gestures around to a few of the others. Everybody else is like the scalies, I'm like,
I see.
Already not.
Yeah. Well, if they try to give you any grief about it, let me know.
Well, I do have one friend who's also signed up. She's touched by the Rain Wilds quite a lot. A lot of them say that she shouldn't have been born or let live, but her name's Tamara. She'll be late. She's always late. But it's good to see a friendly face.
Yeah. What do you know about this setup? Do you know anyone else who's coming along, or just your friend?
Just Tamara, and They don't expect us to come back, do they? I'm glad. I don't want to come back.
Yeah, good.
That will make me a
riddance.
new life.
And I like sneer at those posh people.
You do hear one voice quite loudly pitched in the back, just sort of say, "And what did they expect? People who shouldn't have been allowed to live in the first place, and criminal scum.
Wow.
No wonder. What a waste." And then, sort of, as that's going on, we're going to cut. We're going to cut, and we're going to roll a d4. Find out who's next.
Let's cut, because Twiggy's about to throw hands.
Yeah. So Josh, tell us a little bit about who you're playing. Tell us about where they're from, why they're here. How they grew up, that sort of stuff.
It's a lot of information. So he's Patrick. He's a forest gnome. He has like wild, messy, kind of deep orange red hair with a full red beard, and he's very cute and small. He's very it's very easy to influence him. He's not got much up there going about. And his mum was a slave, and he was born while she was. So he's got a little dot tail on his nose, but she had escaped. And we, after going to a few places, settled here. He's very...
Just for reference, there was a call to the tattooed to come to Treehawk to help work, to dredge out the river, to allow the serpents to make their way up to Treehawk, where they would then cocoon and be born as dragons, the very dragons who you're now volunteering to escort. So that was about 15 years ago, so that's probably as and when your mum came.
Yes, so mum came because of that. And then Patrick has some magic about him that is nature-based. And so when he got a bit older, his mum was like, "Oh, go, go see the druids. They can, give you a job or, get you to do something." So when he went over to them, they're trying to, bring life to this place that's so fucked. And they see Patrick waving around fire, and they're like, "Well, you're the wrong kind of druid. Please leave immediately." And so that's kind of why he's come to this sign up, is that he's sick of the druids shooing him away, and just the whole place. He is friends with Twiggy.
Well, and so
kind of
I'm going to ask you a little bit about that in a second. I mentioned before the session, but I'm going to ask you again now. Everybody, when you turn up at the Rain Wild Council Hall, seems for the most part not to be holding much, or they're just sort of wearing your plain clothing. You'll notice a fair few of them are barefoot, as is quite natural when you live up in the trees, especially if you're on the scalier side and you have feet that can grip onto things. You do notice one man is holding a spear and a longbow, but other than that, everybody's definitely unarmed. A few are clutching the odd weird thing. One particular boy has red scaling on his face. He looks a bit simple. And he is holding what appears to be a sort of cotton bag tied to a string over its shoulder, like he's going on a grand adventure, like Little Red Riding Hood. Did that picture share to you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you can see he really stands out for having something with him while everybody else is sort of standing around. Is there something from your childhood, perhaps, that you might have with you that perhaps you might use when trying to focus on your magic? That sort of thing.
I'm so glad you asked.
Good.
Yeah. So whilst I was a baby, my mum had made me out of sticks and autumn leaves a little figurine doll that I would play with as a baby, and I still carry it around.
Cute. Yeah, so that's sort of just in your pocket, but it's quite obvious you've got something there. And as you move towards the group, you will see that Twiggy is engaged with a young tattooed boy, sort of 16-ish. He's one of the only people here who doesn't have scaling on their face, or even on his hands, which is incredibly unusual. It means he's either fairly new to the Rain Wilds, or he's not really had any interaction with the lower branches. As you arrive and see Twiggy, what are you doing?
If her back's towards me, then I very dramatically and cartoonishly like kind of creep on over to get the jump on her.
Okay. A couple of larger folk make way a little bit, like they think you're a bit odd. If you look across the other side of Twiggy, you will see this red-scaled guy. Seeing you, sort of, he puts a big smile on his face, and he puts his hands up, and he begins to sort of do the same thing, but in place, which makes him look incredibly odd. And as you sneak up and arrive and tap Twiggy on the shoulder, we'll leave it there. And I'm in a very weird situation where I'm going to roll a d4, hoping not to roll a 4. Which means I'm guaranteed going to roll a 4 because I can't even see it. Fantastic. And Jamal, tell us a little bit about who you're playing, what are they like, where do they grow up, etc.
Right. So the character I'm playing is Emil. He's a half-elf, particularly tall. Takes after that from his mother's elven side. So he's one of the people here that's touched by the Rain Wilds. Not heavily scaled, but he's got a smaller. Oh my!
Sorry, I couldn't help but a little laugh when Josh wrote in chat. He's not a snack; he's a whole meal.
Oh boy.
You say he's not heavily scaled, but there's quite a lot of scaling on his face and neck, right? So it's at least obvious that he's scaled, if nothing else.
He's obviously scaled, visibly so, but he's not like he doesn't have a lot of the distorted features, you know, the eyes and the scale and the
The claws
nose
and stuff.
features and such. Yes, claws, those sorts of things. He doesn't have quite that what a lot of the others have. He's a lot more just visible scales, really.
Yeah.
But he's
Where did he grow up? Or how did he grow up?
Sorry?
Where or how did he grow up?
Oh, right. So he was born and raised here in this specific settlement. His mother was one of the tattooed slaves freed.
And his father?
And his father was his father's human, but fairly surprisingly shorter, stocky, strong, a lot of a handyman type. He would have done a lot of the manual labour around the areas. When the call went out, as you said, for the dredging the canal, he would have probably been one of the ones getting heavily in with that and doing that as a work.
Is he also tattooed?
No, he's touched by the Rain Wilds much more heavily than average. Like, he was one of the ones that people would look at and go, "Why is he here? Why is he still around?" One of the first, or one of the oldest from the sort of time when people started to reconsider, just getting rid of the heavily touched immediately without question. A few people sort of changed their mind on things, changed their ways. That was his parents, who were one of the people that were like, "Why is this? Why are we doing this?" And that's basically why he's still around.
And that union provoked some outcry, I would imagine. There are very few Rain Wilders who... it's seen as like sort of good luck to bring in the fertility of especially a female tattooed into the family. But those who are more heavily touched by the Rain Wilds aren't really... It's not they're not allowed to reproduce, but it's sort of heavily suggested that they don't. Because it produces even more heavily touched children. And of course, in this situation, there were many reasons why other people might have looked askance upon your bond.
Emil, on the other hand, escaped a lot of the side effects of being touched by the Rain Wilds. He's for now. But nonetheless, considering his background, his family's certainly not going to be particularly wealthy. Considering that his dad at least is pretty strong, and considering his dad's at least pretty strong and capable individual. He's been able to do a lot of work around the area, and that's sort of kept his pay at least. So his family's not completely impoverished, but
they're not
especially
well
considering
off.
social status, they're not really.
And social
particularly-
status means a lot in Treehawk.
Yeah.
It determines, how you're viewed, but also how much sway you have on the council, that sort of thing. How old's Emil?
So even though people would at least respect, his dad for being strong and able to do a lot in terms of labour,
They wouldn't want to be seen employing him, ever. So you'd still have that problem. How old is Emil?
19.
19?
19,
So very young for an elf. Or half-elf, I suppose. And as you make your way to this gathering outside the Rain Wild Council, is there something that perhaps you cling on to from your childhood that might help you on focusing your magic?
So he does have a small wooden carving that he managed to keep hold of. That was his mother's from around the time when she was still a slave. She managed to do a very crude and simple carving, and that sort of stayed in the family. And he was, she let him have that as like a gift to him.
Yeah. And as you arrive at this sort of meetup, one particular gentleman, gentleman's a strong word, one particular man. This is the man who has the spear. He also has a longbow. Honestly, guys, I looked for art of this guy for so long, I couldn't find it. So you'll just have to take my word for it and know there's not a dragon with him right now.
There's a dragon with him.
Yeah, he is heavily scaled. It's all the way up his neck. I tried to get art, and it had things like dragons coming out of his mouth and wings and stuff like that. I really couldn't manage it. But basically, he's heavily scaled. All up his arms. He's got claws to hands. All up his neck. His mouth is quite slit, and his lips have thinned out like a lizard. His eyes have slit. His nose is flared. He has almost no eyebrows worth mentioning. And even parts of his hair are replaced by scaling. He's definitely older than the rest of you, perhaps 28, 29. And unlike everyone else, he looks prepared. Everyone else is like wearing rags or like whatever they just happened to get up in that morning. A couple of them are like slacking on candies, but nobody's got a pack or anything. He's got like a heavy bag on his back. It's full of stuff. He's got his spear. He's got his longbow slung over his back. And as he sees you, he just sort of... half-breed.
What of it?
You coming along for this?
Yeah, why not?
Suppose there's not much better you could do with your life. And you get the impression that he's actually struggling to get his words out. Might as well die with the rest of us, I guess. You might be an outsider out there. But with us, you're one of us. Welcome on in. What's your name?
Alright. Name's Emil. What's
Greft.
yours? Greft.
Emil. He nods and he's sort of like, as if you have now been told you're accepted, was like his choice to make. It's almost like he's assuming the responsibility. Maybe because he's older, maybe because he's better prepared, maybe because he's that kind of guy, you're not really sure. But as this happens, I'm just going to decide. Jay, because you know what I'll say? I'll say anything above a 50, anything below a 50, then I'll roll a D100 and I'll roll a 50. Jay, tell us a little bit about your character. Don't reveal too much of the past. Just sort of from when they arrived at Treehawk onwards, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so Arya is a very cute-looking half-elf, although she isn't as tall as most individuals with elven blood, only about 5'6".
Mm-hmm.
She wears very, not like noble clothing, but fine enough. Although, if you take like a closer look, you can see there's cuts and sort of like tears in certain spots, showing like this is probably her main and only outfit. And sort of like most nobly, with her look is that she wears a mask over the bottom half of her face. It's a simple purple cloth mask, but it covers half of it. But you can still like easily see her expression as like her cheekbones will raise up when she smiles and such.
And when did she come to Treehawk? How long ago?
It's pretty recent. She's only been here probably 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Okay. So, very new arrival. In fact, perhaps you even came because you heard about this, either the dragons themselves or even the call for volunteers?
Yeah, she heard that there was some sort of call of volunteers out here, and not fully understanding everything, but, you know, she figured she could help out, or at least keep morale up.
Yeah. And you'll be one of the few who has knowledge of something called the live ships. Every Rain Wilder will know what a live ship is. Live ship is made of wizard wood, which is now known to be the cocoons of dragons. But back then it was just known as wizard wood. It was just another wood that people saw that was kept under Fringle in the Elderling City. It is the only means of travel up and down the Rain Wild River. Technically, that's not 100% true now. Very recently, very rich nobles from Jamalia, hearing about these dragons, have begun to experiment with newfangled science and magic to create boats that are being called impervious boats. But they're very small. They're sort of 2-person boats. There's nothing better than that. You, however, will have had to travel on a live ship on your way up. You probably boarded one of the cheaper ones, perhaps Paragon, who's known to be a ship of a little bit of bad luck. Although he was also quite closely involved in the escorting of the dragons up the Rain Wild River, which has gained him a bit of a better reputation. But these are live ships. They come to life after, hence the name, after 3 deaths of their owners, of the family that bought them. The blood sinks into the wizard wood, and the memories sort of sink into it. And the figurehead comes to life and tends to be an amalgamation of the 3 people that went into it. They hold a lot of the memories of the people, but don't actually hold the soul of them or anything like that. But it's quite unnerving. These huge figureheads talk. Paragon himself is a bit of a difficult one. 2 of his owners died very young. So he was quickened way before his time. He doesn't have a full 3 adults with of memories. He can be quite boyish or childish sometimes. But he was also seized once by Igor, the pirate. A nasty, nasty man. Very violent. A lot of blood was spilt on his decks that was also taken into his wizard wood. So he's a little bit mad, a little bit off kilter. So your first experience of live ships was quite unnerving. And so seeing a man sort of beginning to gather people up, he looks a little like this. He's not on a boat right now. He looks a little like this. He's a bit of a gruff fellow, but he looks like he's preened his beard and moustache specifically for today, like he's got an important job. But it doesn't hide the fact that his hair is a little unkempt under a slightly dirty hat. His hands are rough. His manner is rough. And you will recognize him to be a captain. He is a captain of a live ship. The very first, in fact, known as the Tarman. The Tarman is not a ship with a figurehead. It's instead a barge. So it does not have a figurehead that can speak, but it does have a pair of painted eyes which began to watch the river many, many centuries ago and have never stopped. He's the oldest living live ship. And you would also know he is the ship that is going to be escorting you all up the river. And as this man sort of calls out, "Alright, you over here, you over there, come on then. I'm sure there's meant to be some more of you." He sort of looks down and, at his list, and you can see he's struggling a little bit to read it. As if he's not very well lettered, or perhaps it was written really badly, or perhaps really roughly. He sort of looks about and looks up, and "I know you!" But he points over to you, Arya. And, "Brashen says you're a useful hand on deck. I'll be glad to have you as company." And as he says that, sort of everybody turns to you, and you just hear the mutters. "An outsider? An outsider? Someone... land folk? Bingtowner?" Different words, basically all meaning you don't come from here. It's muttering. Nobody says it directly to your face. And then Greft sort of speaks up. "Hey! One of us now. We're all together here." No outsiders anymore. We're all outsiders together. And as he says this, a girl sort of sidles up. And she is, I mean, not only is she heavily scaled, but she's barefoot. She's got clawed feet, literally like a lizard's foot in parts. She's got clawed hands. Her hair is sort of all down one side, and there's scaling all up the other side of her head. Even her eyes are slightly slitted like a lizard's. And you note that when she speaks, she has a slight lisp, as her tongue is ever so slightly forked. I'm not going to attempt to do a lisp. Sorry to disappoint. And she sort of looks over at Grefton. Even me? Greft sort of... Even you, Tamara. You all will know of Tamara. There was a huge argument where basically she fell almost 16 stories from one of the higher bridges down low, and it's believed she was pushed. No one sort of admits who. Some even question if it was her mother, because they lost such fortune when she was left alive. Her dad has had to sort of fight for her to be left alive all her life. She really is like, she was born heavily scaled, and people who are born like that aren't meant to be left alive. She's perhaps 15 years old, and yet she looks like she's 22, 23. You can see
was this? She was pushed
when she was 13, 2 years ago. But there were also rumors that the priests tried to kill her at, like, sort of at birth, and her dad had to, like, hide her away and pretend he was giving her the traditional old death, which was to put her out in the forest and wait for the beasts to come and kill her, and then he instead hid her away and kept her alive. Her mother is known to be very ashamed of the fact she's alive. Everyone knows the story of Tamara, and it's like, it's sort of expected that she would be here, but at the same time, like, a lot of people don't expect her to live that long and don't think of her as a fully competent being.
This is Tat's friend he was telling me about, right?
Yeah, and Tat sort of waves her over, and she comes over and she sort of nods to you, but she says nothing. Greft sort of, having said even you tomorrow, says nothing more. But you will notice that there are a couple of other females on the journey. One of whom is just arriving, but before they arrive, let's find out a little bit more about them. Arya, if you do we think you need an arcane focus? Probably, right?
Sure.
We'll give you one. What would it be? What would this sort of, perhaps not even from your child, but just something you carry with you?
Yeah.
Represents magic to you.
It's nothing too special. It's probably a bit odd when people look at it, but it is it kind of looks like just a folded up piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
But when unfolded, it is a playing card, each with 4 different suits, as it is folded in like half twice.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's unfolded, it is a queen of all.
Ah, okay. And is this part of a trick, or is it just sort of a symbol to you?
It's more of a symbol. It definitely doesn't look like it was made like this.
Mm-hmm. And as the last character approaches, Laura, tell us a little bit about who you're playing. What are they like? Where do they grow up? How do they grow up? Who are they?
So I am playing Atani. She is a human. I would say her parents were probably middle to higher class artisans. Probably like weaving, I think. There's everybody who's around the area would kind of know that there's this rumor hanging around Natani. When she was a kid, she went out adventuring with a friend, and he ended up dying while they were out there. And she was a bit traumatized from it and didn't speak about it, and so everybody, the rumor mill kind of went off. Anybody who would bother to detect thoughts or try to do that, who had the capabilities, would say it was not her fault, but nobody really listens to anything but the bad. Especially for somebody who has even the smallest hint of the touch of the wilds. She does have blue scaling a little bit on her face, a lot more on her arms, and even some on her back. I'd say that the rumors and the hushed looks, like I'm sure when people were talking about who might have pushed Tamara, that some rumors would have pointed to Natani.
Yep. Definitely. I think they did. But it's fair to say that as you're probably one of the only people here who were brought up with a little bit of wealth, you might have had some, is it martial training during your younger years?
Yeah, definitely some training. She's even... It took her a long time to get her voice back from the trauma. She ended up in the woods talking, and eventually actually talking to herself, as she sort of manifested an echo of herself in a way to speak to, and to eventually help her practice.
There is some Discord lag, yes, John. But I think we got everything that Laura said. I think it's fair to say your father is still alive, is that correct?
They're both still alive, which is a first for me when it comes to characters. But
it's probably your father who sort of said, that you're not to go down with like anything that you've used for practice. You'll get given equipment and you'll be the same as everyone else. You wouldn't want to not fit in. That sort of thing that has led to you turning up just like everybody else in, your standard clothing and not a huge amount else. And in fact, you will hear momentarily as you arrive, and you arrive with one other girl. She seems to be the last to the group. She says nothing, but as she sidles up, she's got this sort of air of confidence. And she's got strange spikes at the side of her head, almost like the beginning of a dragon's crest, and scaling all the way up one side of her, and even running through her hair. In some ways, she's seen as quite exotic or beautiful, but to the Rainwilders, she's just seen as a mistake. And as she arrives very late and says nothing at all, you hear that big chap sort of, right, you're all to come with me. Got equipment to collect, and then we'll be heading upriver. It's just under a day's journey to the dragons. Come along. Single file now, kids, or whatever. You'll work it out. Skelly, bring up the rear. And as he says this, he sort of pats his daughter, little sister, deckhand, you're not really sure, on the back. And she sort of begins counting you out. She reads the list with a lot more confidence. And as each person comes by, she just double checks. She gets a couple of names wrong, but none of yours. Specifically, she confuses two brothers. Two red-headed brothers who appear to be twins, although not completely identical. And she gets them wrong, and they're like, no, he's Boxster. And they go, no, he's Boxster. But Case and Boxster are sort of head on past. Tamara is the last to file in line, Gref to the first. The rest of you sort of find your way within. You will note that including... I will start getting your names soon. Including Natani and Twiggy, and Aria. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 girls. You're a little outweighed by the male consortium, but that's to be expected. It's seen as quite a bit of danger, and the lads are always excited about that. But yeah, as you get led all the way down to the dockside next to the river, I'm just going to double check because I'm terrified. I have gone to each one of you, right? Okay, good.
Yes.
There's this horrible sinking feeling inside when you do character introductions that you've just forgotten someone. They're sat there, like, feeling the shittest you ever felt, right? And I'm going through people and I'm thinking, did they tell me that or did they tell everybody that? So, yeah, as he leads you down to the dock, you will see the tar man. And as you stand by it, I apologise for the sort of stuck-on eyes. It's not very easy to put eyes on a boat. And trust me, I looked for a lot of art, and I could not find it. But you will see them. They're sort of almost wooden, but slightly humanised. And they roll to each one of you as you come down. The docks are built very sturdily in Treehawk. It's one of the few things in the whole of Treehawk that has stone involved in the building. 4 huge stone pillars driven right down into the ground. It's black stone with silver veining that is known to be that sort of elderling material that sort of remembers how it's meant to be and is much more resistant to the rainwells. And standing on the edge of this boat is a humongous human. He's got a great big grin on his face. Josh did say that his muscles look like tumours. It's not particularly not particularly incorrect. I should probably put us on roll 20 so that people can see this. But yeah, and immediately the captain will sort of look at him and he'll tell you all, I'm Lefrin, that's Skelly, I'm your captain. That there's Big-Eyed. He don't talk much, but he's a good guy. He's a good man. He's a good guy. I was halfway between bloke and guy. Yeah. I suddenly thought to myself, do Americans say bloke? I don't think they do. So I tried to switch to guy and it just American bi came out. Anyway. Yeah, this huge guy is sort of standing there and he's holding out these equipment packs. They're basically like steady equipment. And then to a few people just behind him, you'll see that there's a selection of weapons. And sometimes he's sort of eyeing you up, trying to work out exactly what weapon you might want. And sometimes he's asking. But to every single person, he will give out the following standard equipment pack. Sorry to those of you who had half of these items and deleted them and now can have them all back. But he gives everyone a stout quarterstaff. It's usually used for like walking. But you can hit people with it if you need to. Sturdy leather boots with bindings. An explorer's pack, including a mess kit. And I think it has a mess kit in it. And rations, but if it doesn't, you should have a mess kit and 10 rations. I have handed this out on the thingy, right? This is still here. Yes. Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. A cook's utensils for cooking your own food and managing your own food. A small knife. It's very basic cook's utensils. Don't be expecting to cook fancy-ass escargot. But you can definitely get some meat skewered over a fire with it. A dagger, a small knife for cutting meat and such. It's also got a slightly serrated back, which can be used for like pulling out fish bones, things like that. A sling and 20 small stones that fit in it that will be bullets on. I think they're called bullets. Is that what a sling throws on D&D Beyond?
Did you say 20?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. It's in a handout on your screen, so you should be able to see it. Yeah, and as each of you approaches, to Greft he doesn't give a weapon at all, as Greft is holding a huge spear and a longbow. And you see him place one longbow to the side, as if reserving it for someone. For the most part, these are simple weapons. There are 3 spears, there are 4 or 5 javelins. There's a couple of martial weapons. One is a fairly old-looking but sturdy sword. And one is... could be a battle axe or a great axe, depending on how tall you are. And for some of you, it's a halberd. Looking at you, Josh and Michaela. But yeah, it's the weapons are there, and he's sort of anyone who seems to have a decent amount of magic about them. I don't know if that's the right word, Ario. I don't mean it offensively. You know what I mean. Anyone who looks like a full caster doesn't get anything but other than a simple weapon. But yeah. Let's go in reverse order. Can I manage that? Natani, you're first as you step up. He sort of eyes you and he nods. And he sort of waves his hand behind him. In terms of ranged weapons, there are javelins. There is one light crossbow, but there doesn't look like there's more than 5 or 6 bolts for it. And there's a variety of simple weapons, and then the 2 martial weapons I mentioned. Is anything catching your eye?
The sword that you mentioned, is it a longsword?
Would you like it to be?
Yes.
It's a longsword. Imagine that.
Oh yeah, how convenient.
It was a longsword or a greatsword. I couldn't work out from your picture, and I didn't look through your inventory because I didn't think you'd have anything. Yes, there's a longsword. When you sort of eye it up, he sort of gestures on the ground towards what appears to be a shield. Is a very strong word for it. It's like an arm bracer / buckler. It's kind of this size and it's wooden. But on D&D Beyond it'll give you 2 armor class if you want a shield to go with your sword.
Yes, I would.
Great.
Very cool.
He hands you that and sort of you hear one of the guys at the back sort of, but I wanted the sword. And everybody else sort of just completely ignores him. It wasn't Patrick. After a couple more, the light crossbow is sort of pushed to the side a little bit as the 2 ginger gentlemen approach. These are Case and Boxster. They are twins, but they are not identical. But they have the similar sort of scaling. One is much more heavily scaled than the other. Case has like sort of heavy scaling up his back, and almost instead of elven ears, he's slightly dragon-esque twist to his ears. Boxer doesn't have as much scaling, but he sticks with his brother, and for that reason they've both been given cold shoulder. And as they arrive, sort of the martial weapons and the short crossbow are all sort of pushed out the way as if Big Ida's just going, nope. And he hands them 2 very simple clubs. After a couple of moments, they each try hitting each other with them, and Ida is shown to be fairly wise. As they sort of go mocking off, yeah, we're gonna fight! The next gentleman, sort of sidle up, is very quietly spoken. Some people think he's quite beautiful, but it's well known that he has scaling on his chest from like sort of and across his stomach, and on his shoulders, and frontal scaling is often a sign of very young death. And as he gets to the front, he says, "Are we getting any armor?" And Big Eye, no. And a smaller gentleman who looks quite experienced, sort of on the wheel, leans over. This, I think what Josh said is someone's dad. When he saw the artwork, he probably is someone's dad. But yeah, he seems to be sort of second in command to Lefren. Sort of leans over and, what you gonna need armor for? You fall in, you sink. If you find anything in the Rain Wilds, it'll eat you. Best be quick. Bop it once on the nose of the stick and get out the way. Sights. Who knows how much clambering you'll need to do. You'll be glad you don't have any. The gentleman who is identified as Alum. Sort of, oh, okay. I'm alright with a bow. But, unless anybody else wants. I'll just take that. And he gestures towards the battle axe, and Big Ida sort of looks at him and is like, shrugs his shoulders, and he gives it to him, and he almost drops it, and Alum said, oh, that's a lot heavier than it looks. You got something... And then Ida sort of pats him on the shoulder and hands him a short sword. And you can see him actually, like, place the hilt into his hands. Do you need a minute, Michaela?
I'm okay.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if you were about to answer, and I was like, we can just cut off. Yeah, so he sort of places the hilt in his hand, sort of almost guiding him in how to hold it to not stab himself on the way off. And then he pats him on the back, and Alum sort of moves over. And next up is Arya, I think. Arya, as you step up, he sort of looks at you, and he sort of sizes you up a little bit, and then he puts his hand in front of the longbow and gestures to everything else for you to take what you want. Is there anything in mind that you had? Did I just say that like Yoda? Is there anything that you had in mind? Holy shit! Is there anything in mind that you had?
Anything in mind you have?
What the fuck's wrong with me?
I'm kind of looking. I see the short bows, and there's plenty, but no one's picked up the light.
There's one short bow. That's it. One short bow, one light crossbow, one long bow, which he's holding his hand in front of.
Right. There's plenty of, like, arrow count. Is there more arrows?
There's loads of arrows. Loads of arrows. There's about 7 bolts. But he sort of nods at you. And he gestures again as if to say, if you want a short bow and a light crossbow, you can have it.
I, like, light up. Really?
And then he sort of looks behind you and shrugs as if to say, nobody else can fucking use it. That's sort of where he's at. Yeah.
Yeah, I scoop up both of them.
Okay, any melee weapon for you? There's a couple of short swords, about 8 daggers, but you've already got one in your inventory. Yeah.
Yeah, no, nothing melee.
Cool. Okay, I didn't know if you're going to two-hand it. But I think you need a hand free to do other stuff. Right behind you, Tats sort of steps up, and he quite confidently points at the battle axe. When it's handed to him, he sort of hefts it and nods to himself. He seems quite confident. And he slings it over his shoulder and puts it in his belt. And he looks up at Ida and you got a little bit of rope. That's not his voice. You got a little bit of rope. And he sort of gestures to tie around it. And Ida sort of gestures down at a woman, a ginger woman, who's leant over the edge of the boat, and she's just smoking a cigarette. She looks over and, I got rope. Come on. Looks like you can handle yourself. You ever been in a boat? Tat sort of, I've been on a boat, but, not a big one like this. She sort of smiles. This ain't a big boat, lad. But all right, come on. Yeah, right behind Tats would be Twiggy, I assume. I know that Jamal should. Yeah, it should be Jamal next, then Patrick.
It should
Patrick
be
then
Jamal, then me, then Twiggy.
Yeah, that's what I said. It should be Jamal then Patrick. But seeing as Twiggy and Tats were friends, we're gonna have Twiggy next. Because I'm assuming Twiggy's just gonna shake her head and walk onwards. But I could be wrong. Do you want to stick? Yeah, cool.
I've been smacking Patrick with the staff they gave us.
Cool, great, love that. Patrick, it's about time you got something to smack back with.
Yes, as well, I've got a
Sure.
As we've been having a stick fight, like a duck out.
Sorry, I do just want to quantify for you two small characters. All of the staffs are the same height. They're all 5'5", so it's like it's twice your height. This stick. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, go on, Patrick.
Yeah, so like dodging out of one of her swings, seeing an opening at the weapons part, just run ahead.
A big eye just sort of sweeps away anything that looks complicated.
Oh wow!
And Patrick anything that looks like it's got metal attached to it.
Yeah, Patrick gives him a glazed look.
He's
kind of looking.
I'm gonna kind of gauge with you if you don't mind. He's gonna reach across, and he picks up what looks to be like the ship's mallet for like hammering in like bolts and stuff. Everybody else is completely aware it's not a normal weapon. And he's just going to hand it to you. You can use it functionally as a light hammer, as long as you promise not to try and throw it. Or at least if you do throw it, you'll throw it with disadvantage.
I take it and I turn back to Twiggy with a very malicious grin as I like walk towards.
As you walk off, you do hear a bit of a snort from behind you in laughter. Somebody's having a bit of a giggle at your expense, but looking around, you're not sure who it was.
I like the hammer.
Emil, as you approach next, having a look at all these martial weapons, well, not martial weapons, simple weapons. Is there anything in particular that Emil would want?
Not really. I've got the quarterstaff. I've got a dagger which I can just strap to my side, and that should be me pretty much good. So I'll just take a look at the pile of weapons, look up at the guy, and just say, "No thanks, cheap."
He nods. And behind you, there aren't many left. There is three girls, and Rapscal. Rapscal comes up next, and he sort of pointedly looks around. He's looking for a sword. He was the one who really wanted the sword that Natani took. Natani. Sorry, I will get there, Laura. Like, why couldn't you just call it Cat? That's not that I've ever struggled with your names before. Anyway, yeah. So he sort of, I wanted a sword, and Big Ida sort of nods, and he reaches over and hands him a spear, and talking from up top, Hennessy once again sort of says, "Spear's your best weapon in the Rain Wilds. You can throw it, you can keep somebody at distance with it. Versatile, one hand, two hand." Absolutely everything you need. Don't worry, kid. You'll be fine with that. And then Rapscal sort of takes it through a few motions. And you see everybody sort of raise their eyebrows as he looks incredibly proficient with said spear.
Whoa.
And Big Ida sort of looks down at him and reaches sort of into a cubby hole and hands him a rapier. And he sort of almost, he doesn't quite spin it on his finger, but he sort of flicks it round and grabs it, and then like one motion just holsters in. He looks incredibly mentally simple, but certainly knows how to handle a weapon. He sort of smiles and,
just
thanks!
like Patrick.
Thank you very much! And he, yeah! Come on, let's go! And he sort of begins to run off along the dock. And somebody has to sort of wave at him and, we're all going on the boat? Oh, yeah, I knew that! I was just getting my bag. He's already holding his bag, so he's chatting rubbish. And he comes surging back along, and he like leaps onto the boat, where he sort of skids along, almost crashes into Bellin, who's smoking on the side. Everybody sort of steps away from him. He's definitely, he's playing to his own tune. Oh shit, that one was a lot louder. Sorry. Yeah, and then there's just 3 girls left. First is Jerd. She sort of looks over and hesitantly motions towards a javelin. And she gets it, and she sort of, you can see it looks clunky in her hands. She sort of holds it widthways like this and walks along the boat, then sort of almost knocks something off, and she's to the side like, okay. And then next is a girl called Sylv, or Sylvie, who you haven't met yet. I think I'm going to go with Sylv. She has pink scales almost instead of hair for the most part. This is one of these wiki arts. By the way, the wiki arts are really random, so don't think that because we've got a wiki art, they're a main character. It's just not the case. They've got them for like really, really minor characters and haven't got them for some of the key characters. So it's not that helpful of a way. She also, she has that bag on her back, I guess, and she just got. And she steps up, and she's definitely the shortest non-short race of the group. She's about 4'8". She looks to be about 13, maybe 14. She's definitely young. She no thanks, mister. I wouldn't want to hurt anyone else. If something comes, I'll... And she sort of looks up at the vice captain and repeats his earlier words. Hit it with a stick and get out the way. And she sort of smiles and nods, and she moves onwards. You will note at this point that Emil, Patrick, and Arya seem to be the only people with any magical capabilities, including everyone you've met on the boat so far. So good luck with that.
Yes.
And then last in line is Tamara. Tamara sort of steps up very confidently, and it's no surprise you've seen the art. Ida reaches around, hands to the bow straight away. She also takes a spear, and you will note that she also leans over to... It looks like a javelin, but it's shorter, almost like a stake. And it's known as a hunting spear. It's specifically for spearing fish. And she sort of points, and we all gonna get some of those? And Ida sort of nods and later. No, all right. And with ease puts the bow over her back. Is given 40 arrows, and she sort of puts those quite comfortably on her back as well. She definitely looks like she can handle the bow. She's a little clunky with the spear. She's not that comfortable with that. But with a lot of you now on the boat, that is your full selection of dragon keepers. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them, 5 of you, bringing the total up to 14. And I'll take a perception check. This is an odd perception check, because it's if you heard about it last week. I'm really sorry to do this to you, but from everyone other than Arya. Because you just don't walk in the same circles, I'm afraid.
Oh my gosh. It's still a 7. What is wrong with
Oh
my
my god, I can't believe it.
Oh my god, it's...
I got a
broken.
21.
Alright.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how much Patrick would care. But Patrick and Emil, you did hear that there were 16 dragons. So what sparked this event was the 17th dragon sort of tried to force his way into the Elderling city and was basically killed by the Rain Wilders. Like trying to protect themselves as he was trying to eat humans because he was hungry.
Wow.
The dragons haven't really had that much food. Some of them are a bit simple-minded, you do know that. But yeah, there were meant to be 16 dragons, so there were meant to be 16 keepers. But it seems you got all the volunteers here.
Interesting numbers discrepancy. I guess we'll figure out what the hell's going on with that soon.
There's 9 others. I don't have the cast pulled up. Does that not include the ship captain and...
No. There's 9 other dragon keepers. So they're in the dragon keepers folder in the handouts. They should all be in one place for you. so you can note them by name if you don't want to look in the cast list and get any spoilers. There is one fellow in the crew you haven't met yet, and you will see him on the tiller at the back. He is Swaj. You'll note that him and Bellin seem very, very comfortable together. They look like they've got a relationship of some sort. And he's currently manning the tiller. Leftrin's up front, sort of talking to the boat. He's got his hand rested on what appears to be a wizardwood guardrail. And you'll note he's quite protective of the guardrail. He doesn't want anyone else touching it. You'll also note he is speaking to a ginger female for whom art does not currently exist, as I ran out of time. But her name is Elise, and you would have heard about her. Ostensibly, she's an expert on dragons, elderlings, and elderling cities. She's the only person who was able to confirm that Kelsunga does indeed exist somewhere. It's in the history. She's got very bushy ginger hair, she's covered in freckles, and she's dressed like a noblewoman going out for an afternoon tea. With one exception, she's wearing sturdy boots beneath her very elegant sort of pinafore almost. She looks completely out of place. But no more so than the gentleman near her, a little way off to her side, and probably the final member of the cast, or nearly, who is Cedric. We also don't have any art for Cedric yet. I will find it when Bing give me some more shots. But he is even fancier. He looks so out of place. He's wearing like a silk shirt with ruffled lace at the neck. He's got a beautiful pair of sapphire earrings in. He's definitely a dandy. He's definitely a bit effeminate. He's got beautifully coiffed hair. How he's managed that out here, no one knows. He's the only person who looks like he's had a shower yet today. Or a bath, I suppose it would be. He's got beautiful, long, luscious eyelashes and blue eyes. And you can see him, you can already hear him sort of, are we ever going to set off? This is awful. Absolutely awful. Come on. Goodness me, is this the collection? But they're nothing but kids. Wow. That's awful.
Hey, who you calling a kid, mister?
Who invited the band?
You all. Yeah.
Because you're right.
And at this point, he nearly stumbles overboard as a great ginger cat leaps up onto the guardrail to nuzzle against him. And Leftrin sort of, oh, well, guess you're all right then. If Grigsby thinks so. He sort of turns to you all, and Grigsby's my judge of character. If the cat don't like you, I don't like you. And the boat don't like you. So be nice to the cat. Right?
Who said that? Who's cat?
Captain Leftrin. Captain Leftrin.
Captain.
Yeah. So at this point, you can now open your cast document, because you'll find there are only 3 names left on it that aren't mentioned. They are artless for now, but I will tell you that they are inside, which is why you don't know. There are 3 hunters. Leftrin will tell you about them. He'll say, we've got 3 hunters with you. They're getting their rest now. They're going to be working hard tonight. For what it's worth, you just show them respect. Same way as you show me respect when you're on the boat. When you're on the boat, I'm the captain. When you're off the boat, I'm not your dad. I'm not your mate. I will help you if I can, but I've got no responsibility for you. You're all adults out here. Right? But on my boat, I'm the captain. And that includes any and all of you. Right? This here's Elise. She's an expert on dragons. If she makes a suggestion, it'd be worth listening to. She said, thank you. Expert's a strong word. Nobody's truly an expert on dragons these days. But I do my best. I've read the histories, that's for sure. And almost immediately, sort of, certain people just start ignoring her completely. She doesn't seem particularly interesting. She's totally out of place. A lot of the Rain Wilds are judging her for not really fitting in with the scene.
Too fancy.
And Leftrin sort of looks around at you all and... Alright! It's your last chance. Some of you are real young. Look, these dragons need escorting, but... 13, 14... What's the difference? 1! Rapscow yells out. And he's thanks. Look, this is your last chance. If any of you want to step up. I know you've signed contracts, but... Everyone knows, every trader knows, that a contract doesn't... a contract isn't sealed until you start it. This is your last chance to back out. Anyone? Are we sure? And he sort of looks around to a few more and... Not even you, kid. And he nods towards Tats. Tats sort of looks at him. Why me?
Yeah.
Well, where we're going, it's the wilderness, you know. Yeah, I know. All right, then. We'll set off. With that, no sort of further ado, really. The boat pushes off and starts moving along the water. At this point, one of these is going to play pirate music. Is it this one? So, yes. All right. It's not really what I was looking for, but fuck it, it'll do. Yeah, as the boat pushes off, you begin to make your way along the river. The river's not that deep. At times, it's quite shallow. But I will take a survival check from all of you, please.
Whoa.
Okay.
Aha! Nat 20.
Nice.
Whoa, Emil twinsies.
That's a 20 for
Hey,
me.
let's
So I
go.
just found what I was looking for. Yeah.
Dirty 20 for me, sorry.
Okay. 2 nat 20s. Yeah. Twiggy and Emil, you will notice that this boat moves disproportionately quickly compared to the speed at which it's being pulled. As if being shunted along by something bigger than Big Ida. He's big and he's got a big stick, but this ship is really sort of lurching almost as it first gets moving. Once it's moving, though, it picks up very slow and steady pace, and you almost begin to think that maybe you were imagining it. And yet, just out of the corner of your eye, you see the flap as if from a big fin underneath the water. Or even a
I'll
flipper.
look down at that. I'll look down at that and mutter, what the hell was that thing?
And at this point, Skelly will sort of lean over and say, "Nothing," and you'll be good to remember that. Absolutely nothing. You would all know that trafficking in Wizardwood is illegal. Completely illegal since it was found out that it's dragon's cocoon. If Lefrin has found some and used it, because a lot of the dragons didn't hatch, so other dragons consumed them to take their memories in. If Lefrin has found some and used it, he would be at great risk for you to say anything. But it is quite clear that this ship has had some modifications. Perhaps Lefrin has his own reason from getting away from the city, so to speak. And as you begin to lurch on down the river, it's about 6 hours journey. What are you all doing?
I would absolutely beeline it to Elise.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hi there. You're going to be one of the Dragon Keepers then, are you? That's what they're calling you, aren't it?
That's what I hear. I hear you're the expert, and I'd like to know absolutely everything that we're about to get into.
Well, I know absolutely nothing of the wilderness to the north. I don't know anything of the Rain Wilds at all. This is my first time travelling here. But I do know a bit about dragons and elderlings as well. You know, elderlings, they used to be friends to dragons. They used to live with the dragons, groom them. And in some ways, and she sort of reaches up and hesitantly, she doesn't touch you, but she sort of motions towards the scaling on your face. They took on aspects of the dragons. Although, I think it was more controlled when the dragons could influence it. Perhaps living upon a city of elderlings and a city once of dragons. Maybe that's where you gained some of these effects. Truth be told, the dragons that have hatched are nothing like those that I've read of. So the histories say. The dragons are meant to hatch fully ready to hunt. They should take wing and eat, and they grow quickly in their first few years. After which they begin to grow a little more slowly. I don't think dragons ever stop growing. But it takes a long time for them to grow truly huge. But those that emerge from their cocoons, they're not complete creatures. You've got to remember that. They're definitely real dragons, and they're definitely dangerous. But they're not as complete as they might like to be. Now, I've not spoken to any of them, but it's my understanding that dragons have the memories of all their ancestors. But from her
These don't.
tales I've heard, well, I'm sure they're wrong, but some people say the dragons are a bit less mentally capable than they should be.
Like children. As if they didn't have any prior knowledge.
Maybe. Or perhaps like animals. But these are only stories. We won't know till we see them ourselves. You're right, it is very worrying, but... Well, an optimistic smile on the face always brings brighter days, doesn't it? We'll just have to face it and work it out, right? Cedric sort of next to him, sort of, or turn around and go home, like any sensible person would. You'll have to excuse Elise, this is her little adventure. He nods.
I'm just happy to get out of town for a little bit.
Goodness me. By town, do you mean that tree-hugging village place we've just left? Goodness me, you ought to see the real world. You wouldn't call that a town anymore. And he sort of turns to him. Cedric, these people grew up there. Be nice. And if you can't be nice, be quiet. He sort of nods. Looks at you and... I'm sorry, I don't do well with the wilderness. My skin, you see.
No.
And he sort of pats his beautifully... He's got makeup on, clearly. Like, he's got, like, gentle cream on his face. And he sort of pats it. And you can see he's almost glances up at the sun, worrying that he might get a freckle. Whereas her face is just covered in them, as no noble ladies should be. She sort of, seeing this, does adjust her bonnet a little bit to pull it down a little bit further over her head. But you can see she's genuinely really enjoying what she sees as an adventure. And he thinks that this is the most stupid thing anyone has ever done. I didn't catch your name. She says to you.
Natani.
A pleasure. I'm Elise. What are they doing over there? As she just looks down, you'll see a few of the youngsters leaning over the edge of the boat and sort of like jabbing their staffs or spears into the water as if trying to catch fish. Patrick, what were you about to say?
I'm gonna turn to Twiggy. So where are we going?
Great question. We're going to go look at those weird eyes on the front of the boat.
Okay. I'll just follow her.
That will be impossible while in the boat. But you can lean...
That didn't occur to
We
us.
can
That's
try.
right. As the two of you sort of lean over...
Man overboard.
As the sort of two of you lean over, two heavy arms sort of clap back on your backs and pull you back. You'll notice Belen, quite muscular for a woman. She pulls you back in and... If you're going to die, at least do it tomorrow. Come on. Like, for goodness sake. What are you trying to do?
What's happening tomorrow?
She looks at you and... I mean... Try and at least wait till you've met the dragons before trouble befalls you.
You're going to meet dragons?
Uh-oh.
You're going to meet dragons? You signed a contract, remember? She talks to you really slowly.
That was?
Did we?
Yes.
I just
That's what that was.
scribbled. I've never been taught to write. I can't even read.
And yet it would have been read to you and you would have agreed to it.
Who can remember?
Well, it's too late to worry about that now. What were you trying to do? She sort of...
Look at those.
Quite carefully looks at you, Twiggy.
I'm trying to get a look at those weirdo eyes that were eyeballing me when I was eyeballing them on my way on this boat.
Ah. Yeah, Tarmon's got most beautiful eyes. But you'll have to wait till you're not currently sailing. Oh, before you look at them. Otherwise we'll have you overboard. And you know the Rain Wild River's real dangerous, right? You fall in it and that's that. Acid, all that.
Yes.
She looks at Patrick again. You know the river's really dangerous, right?
Yes.
Yes. I flurry with my hand and I summon my wildfire spirit.
On a wooden boat.
Yeah. It can fly.
Okay.
And it takes the shape of a fox that's made out of flames and black smoke and white smoke. And I gesture for it to go where the eye is and describe back to me what it looks like. The spirit can't talk. However, it does understand my languages, so it does know to do what I'm asking it, but it kind of tries to do charade.
Yeah. I like
Okay,
that.
so you're telling me
with
there's a
its little
fiery
paws,
fox
like-
doing charades whilst flying
Yeah.
backwards to not get hit by the boat, looking into its eyes.
It's speed.
Sure, but not backwards. So it's sort of flying backwards, trying to look at it, and it's waving its
Yeah.
paws at you.
So
And,
with its paws, it's kind of just like gesturing towards its eyes.
as this is happening, the two brothers sort of come and lean over. Whoa! What's that?
That's what we were trying to figure out.
Like the fox
But you
starts
did it!
It starts
point at
prancing
Patrick.
about. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
Twiggy assumed they were talking about the eyes.
Michaela's had a Patrick moment.
No, that was in character.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Twiggy doesn't think anything's weird about the fox floating there.
Okay. So yeah, these two sort of. Ah, it's awesome! Can you make it to a flip? Make it to a flip. Go on, make it to a flip.
Do a flip.
Do a flip. And
a
it
flip.
does.
Wow, man! I want one.
Well, I don't know
Did
where
you
this
know?
came from.
Ah. Wow, it's really
It just
cool.
kind of appears.
Case, by the way. This is Boxer. He's my brother.
Hi, I'm Patrick.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
You can call me Twiggy.
That's
You
what
can-
I call her.
Call me Boxster.
Okay, I'll do that.
Boxster.
Boxster and Case.
You said I can call you Twiggy. It's your name, right?
Not legally.
Legally.
What's legally?
You know, my dad calls me Willow, but it's.
Why does he call you that if it's not your name?
Well, that's what he says my name is.
Oh.
Sometimes you can have two names, or so I hear.
Some of us chose our name for ourselves. Greft says, quite loudly from
Exactly.
behind you.
Who's that?
Greft.
Yeah. Exactly.
He struggles to speak, so I thought I'd do a voice that I struggle to use. We'll keep his sentences nice and short. And quite quietly next to you, only Twiggy and Patrick will hear Tat say, "Some of us don't get a name."
Oh shit! When did you get there? Tats, my friend.
Hey, I was just catching up with Tamara. She's pretty excited, you know.
I bet.
Your name can be Firebomb.
Oh, that's good.
I'll stick with Tats for now.
I
But
thought you
thanks.
said you didn't have a name.
I'm meant that no one gave me one. Well, apart from you. Thanks for that.
Well,
That's
there
really
you
sweet.
go.
Yeah.
Firebomb. But you'll have to say it like that.
Yeah, thanks.
Actually, Tats, I wanted to ask. You seem to handle that axe pretty well. You been in a real fight before?
No, never that. Well, you know, I've been alone a lot, and it's hard to get work as a kid. But you swing an axe, you can chop a tree.
Oh, of
You
course.
collect woods for the posh ones sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
As long as I leave it by in the night. So I picked what I was most comfortable with. I figure we're more likely to be chopping trees than enemies or beasts, right? Right? And he sort of looks around.
So,
And Greft
I
sort
mean,
of...
I hope not.
I've travelled in the wilderness. There's plenty of beasts. But they'll probably keep their distance. Especially if we got dragons, right?
Yeah.
Can any of you use a weapon properly?
Check this out. I punch Patrick in his gut.
Give me a damage roll.
as I As I hunch over, I swing
Plus 5
upwards
damage.
with the hammer.
Oh.
Patrick, you take 5 damage and miss.
What? Why?
You
Why?
can roll to hit.
You can roll to hit if you want.
Why do I have to roll to hit? I'm right in front of her.
Because she's a monk with no warning, and you're a
Damn.
druid with plenty of warning.
Okay, fine.
You got a 5?
That's an 11.
You swing your hammer up and miss.
Damn. Damn.
Thanks for getting involved. As this is all going on, I think some of the more reserved folk are a little elsewhere. Perhaps some of the more smarter folk. Sylv and Judd sort of standing quite near each other, but not really speaking. And Sylv looks up at you, Arya, and sort of... She looks a bit hesitant, as if not sure if she can come over. But you can see that she's thinking about it.
Oh, if noticing that, I just cheerfully go over. Hi.
Oh, hi. I didn't want to be rude, but like, you kind of... I don't want to use the word different, because in the Rain Wilds, different can be a bad thing sometimes, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but like, you don't come from around here. What made you come?
Well, there's many reasons. I mean, first off, this seems very interesting. I mean, I know it's dangerous, but I feel like I can help. I have skills. And I sort of like do this little hair flourish, and when I do, there's like this sparkle whenever I move my hands around.
As you do that, you'll note that Alum and the one who I've forgotten, Judd, and perhaps Emil, come a little closer. As you
Sure.
demonstrate some abilities. Silva, that's pretty impressive. I don't have many
Thank you.
skills, but
Oh,
I
you
can
still
cook
have
and I can
some,
sew.
right? You can cook? I can too. What's your favorite dish?
Oh, we, she sort of shakes her head, and it's been a long time since, we're on the lower branches. So it's mostly just oats. But, I can flavor a porridge real nice.
Well, I'll be more than happy if you ever make some for me.
Oh, I'd be really glad to. I just hope that I can be useful, you know? Like, everybody around seems... Well, they're bigger, and some of them know how to, you know, hit things, and a couple of... I mean, you even know magic, right? And, there's whispers that say that you do, too, and she sort of looks to Emil.
Yeah. A little.
Wow. That's amazing.
Manage a few things, but I'm not sure how capable I'd be in a fight, to say the least. But let's hope we don't end up getting into many of the homes.
I hope we don't fight, too, but my real worry is that no dragon will think I'm useful enough. And they won't pick me.
Oh, sweetie.
Adam sort of leans over and... Wait, the dragons are gonna pick us? I thought we'd pick them.
Wait,
Oh, what if none of us are
sounds
picked?
nice.
Rapscal sort of leans over and... I'm gonna choose a big red dragon, just like the scales on my face! And, Adam sort of...
I love this guy.
Well, I had thought we might pick. Some people said that the dragons aren't too bright. Maybe they won't know how to choose. And maybe Sylv, right? Sylv's like, yeah. Maybe you'll have to choose the right one that you can help best. Right? Judd sort of, if there ain't a green one, I ain't having one. I mean, and then she gestures towards her face, and then she sort of sidles up, and you can see she's eyeing, Leftrin, sort of looking him over a little bit as he manages the wheel. He's quite obviously smitten with Elise, but she's sort of looking at him. And then she sort of moves her eyes over to Cedric. And you hear a bit of a deeper voice sort of quite close by say, "You won't have any luck with that one, sweetie." And you'll note that there is a very rough-looking man. He's got sort of a scraggly beard. He's got his hair sort of pulled down to the front. There's no art for our little hunter. In fact, I haven't even done a name for him. Let me do a name at least. This is Carson. And he's one of the hunters. And you'll note like his eyes look almost dangerous. He's definitely quite rough. He's broad-shouldered, muscled well. And he sort of leans over and he's not one for the ladies. So there'll be nothing personal. And Jared sort of, wait, you mean he's like, oh. And as she says this, you see that Carson's eyes sort of flash almost dangerously. And he sort of, oh, no one's judging you. I mean, he nods towards her scales. Lot to learn, all of you. Just get some rest. Who knows how much care the dragons will need when you get there. He sort of looks back and heads back into his cabin. As he opens the door, you will see a youth is in the cabin. Perhaps a 15-year-old boy, 16-year-old boy. He seems to be sharpening a blade. Some sort. He looks very like Carson. They're too close in age to be father and son. So you would assume either brother or nephew. And as he shuts the door behind him, you do hear him just say, "She's going to be trouble." But yeah, we're going to fast forward a little while.
Wait, so which character was that one again?
So Carson the hunter said that Jerd, this female here, is going to be trouble. As she was eyeing up different men one by one, although Cedric was quite clearly not straight.
Yeah.
Although in the Rain Wilds, it's not accepted. Well, in the Rain Wilds, it's not accepted at all. There's no such thing as a man and a man or a woman and a woman. It just doesn't exist. The thing is with the Rain Wilds is that it's so difficult to conceive a child, and many women only manage to conceive one in their whole lives, that it's placed on such a high pedestal of importance that there's not really much interest. Not only that, but like there are also lots of people who marriage is a way of climbing a social ladder. Lots of prearranged marriages, stuff like that. So it's completely unheard of. There are rumors that in Bingtown or even in Jamalia that it's the thing. But anybody who's well read, you'll find out that it's not particularly accepted there either. Bingtown have a lot of arranged marriages and a lot of hoity-toity folk. But Jamalia are super religious. But there's always discussion that somewhere else it's okay. Whether that's besmirching the name of the other place, or whether it's generated by people who dream of one day being there and being able to be free, no one's really sure. But as the boat idles on down the river, it won't be long before you catch a view of some sleeping dragons. Out in the jungle.
Sleepyheads.
Yeah, well, babies isn't quite right. Because as you see them, you can't help but notice, and I know that it's impossible to get art that quite shows this, but they're not all properly made. They're not all properly formed. You'll see dragons who are covered in mud with short, stubby tails, or one wing smaller than the other, or odd-shaped snouts. There's even one dragon whose front legs are so short they're almost got their chin on the floor.
James.
Yeah.
Is that a giraffe?
I hope not. I think I deleted all the non-dragon things. No, it's a plant.
Oh.
If you zoom in, you'll note that it's not very giraffe-like in the slightest. It's in fact, this is more giraffe-like than that. No. For the most part, you'll see all the dragons with their wings folded in or folded down. FYI, it is impossible to get art on the internet of a dragon that doesn't have its wings spread. Right? None of these dragons can fly. None of these dragons are spreading their wings. But all of their art will show that they are. Okay? You see them huddled close. And you'll hear Elise's voice saying, "That's not right. They should be cultivating their own space. Dragons aren't social creatures. They don't travel in herds. Oh dear. This is worse than I thought. And... oh, but they're so muddy. So dirty. But they're such proud creatures. Oh, Cedric. I think we might have made a mistake. Maybe this isn't going to be... Cedric sort of, I don't want to hear it. At least you've told me that we're going here and there's no turning back now. Unless... He sort of looks at Leffrin and... I don't suppose... Leffrin sort of looks at... Even if I would let you go, the likelihood of you paddling a boat back to Treehog. Fat chance. We're in this now. Cedric sort of... Oh, goodness me. That's terrible. Are you sure? We can pay you quite handsomely to... I will hear none of it. And as this sort of sound happens, and as people are getting a little bit closer, the dragons begin to awake.
I will shout out. Hey, dragons!
As you do so, you see, for the most part, they sort of look up and then look back, mostly ignoring you. But one particular dragon begins to sort of almost gambol towards you. Try not to look at the text information. I don't want too much to be given away. I'm just showing you the art, okay?
Can I
just don't
change
scroll down.
my dragon?
No. No. So this little tiny thing has a... I mean, the picture says it doesn't, but it has a tiny little short stubby tail. It looks totally deformed. Its wings sort of flap awkwardly as it runs in a way that is really uncomfortable, one going higher than the other. The skin's not properly formed underneath and is almost see-through. The creature looks sickly. As it sort of gambles towards the boat, it just sort of goes...
Oh,
Rapscal sort of looks at... We meant to... I thought that we'd understand them. And a really deep, rich timbre sort of rolls out to you all. You will, for the most part. Though some of us are a little lacking in speech. Welcome. Am I to understand that you're the keepers? Gold dragon.
See where this is coming from?
The gold dragon sort of rises from the back and begins walking quite graciously towards you. And you'll note that all the other dragons are beginning to awake. I think that worked. Oh, wait, I'm not on the right page. All of you are, but I'm not. Yeah, as I said, dragons don't have their wings out. That's just how it is. Oh, where's that report? Sorry, bear with me a second. I just need to do a 1 and a 2. Perfect. Yeah, this gold dragon sort of moves towards you all and, well, do alight. There's sturdy ground here enough if you're wearing boots. And at this point, almost every person on the boat sort of scrambles about, realizing that none of them are wearing boots. Not only that, but Tamara seems to, and a few others, seem to be struggling with getting the boots on at all. Especially with scaled feet or lizard-like feet. Boots don't fit very nicely. But realizing they're going to have to step in what is effectively acidic water. Everybody's sort of desperately trying to get their boots on. You will note that they're sort of crisscross. I had the word for them before. Did I put it in the equipment list? Bindings. They're sort of crisscross bindings that allow you to sort of bigger boots to fit a smaller foot, basically. As everybody starts sort of tying their boots, you'll notice that Greft is ready already. He looks over and you see him eyeing about. And then he leaps down from the boat as the boat sort of comes to land at the edge of the marsh. He leaps down from the boat and he strides quite confidently past most of the dragons, moving towards a huge black dragon. He's the biggest of the lot by quite a large mile. He's very big. And he's sort of you'll be mine, and I'll be yours. Greft, your keeper. The dragon sort of looks down. Don't know much that I need a keeper, but you'll do for grooming. Go get a brush. You better start quick. And at this point, as you all begin to alight, you'll see that for the most part, dragons are approaching people, not the other way around.
Oh.
You'll see... Sorry, go on, Patrick. Go on.
I'm gonna whisper to Arya. This is did you know we were coming here? This is crazy.
Yes, I did, and yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
You have no idea.
Oh, you sound so excited.
I want that one, and that one, and that one.
Well, you can only pick one, okay?
That's what you think.
I will lean over from behind
That's
them.
what I
They
know.
pick you.
And,
Pick me.
some of the keepers seem to be quite confidently striding towards certain dragons. There is a stunning blue sapphire dragon, and Tamara sort of quite confidently begins to step towards her. She's by far the most beautiful of the dragons there, in terms of she's one of the few clean ones, at least, so she's not got mud all over her. And as Tamara comes over, she sort of... You see the dragon sort of reach her head past Tamara, looking for anyone else. Elise, who is also headed through the dragon crowd, sort of approaches her and bows quite deeply. And your most beautiful and reverent Majesty, Queen of all queens, and incredible, beautiful, shining sapphire of the sky, how might we be of service? The dragon sort of reaches her head up a little bit. And, well, some of you know how to speak to a dragon, it seems. And not to be outdone, Tamara sort of... your most prettiest? I'll be your keeper? The dragon looks at both of them. You'll both look after me.
Wow.
Perhaps, I wouldn't mind, a bit of polishing wouldn't go amiss. And I am very hungry. And Elise sort of, ooh! And she reaches in and she pulls out like this little steel bristled brush. And she's brought all this way, and she begins sort of preening at the under ruff of the dragon. And Elise sort of looks up and, oh, what's your name? And the dragon sort of moves her head so fast that it almost knocks the girl over. Are you trying to trick me? A dragon's name? You ask a dragon's name? And at this point, other dragons are sort of looking over, and even the keepers sort of noticing. How dare you! Like I'd honor you with my name. If you need something to call me with, you may attempt to come up with something for now. Though I doubt it will do justice to this beauty. Wow. You may return to brushing. You! She gestures towards Tamara. Find me something to eat. And, at this point, keepers who were headed towards dragons are now hesitating a little bit. But without any hesitation, the gold dragon sort of moves forward, walks straight past Jerd, who looks sort of a little like she wasn't that interested, and straight past Arbok, who was looking sort of very admiringly, and leans down to Sylv, the young pink-scaled girl. I think you'll do quite nicely. We're going to get on well. Come. Some of the keepers have begun grooming already. I can tell you how best to begin the process if you would. This mud, it gets right between our scales. I'd be most appreciative. You'll begin to see other dragons pairing up. I'm not going to go through them all quite yet, because there's a lot of dragons. But in particular, you will note that Tats seems to be speaking to a rather beautiful emerald dragon. Jerd has found her green dragon. And somehow, fittingly, the two orange gents have found two orange dragons. Emil, as you sort of are looking around a little bit, one particular dragon sort of noses past. You can see that he's much smaller than some of the other dragons. A little skittish, but He's very well formed in the face. And his tail's actually full length, which is more than we can say for most of them. In comparison to the gold dragon, he's sort of a quarter of the size. He's not quite as small as a little copper runt. The silver dragon sort of looks out at you and shit, fuck, have I got two? Yes, I have. Looks out at you and sort of skitters over and nudges you with his head. In the arm.
Almost a little startled. I look towards the dragon. Oh, hello.
He sort of looks at you and his eyes begin to swirl a little bit. Are you not amazed by me?
Intrigued. Curious.
He looks a little disappointed and his head begins to sink a little bit. But you'll choose me, right?
Yes. Yes, I think I will.
He sort of rests his head sort of awkwardly on your shoulder. Very uncomfortably. It's very, like, he's got, like, sharp ruff on the bottom of his neck. His scales are rough and he's quite heavy. Even a small creature. He's about the size of a horse. Maybe a large horse. At that. The only 3 dragons you'll see that are smaller are the little copper dragon. The little runty one. A purple amethyst dragon. And the second of the orange dragons. This one here. So he's one of the smaller dragons. But as I said, he's got a full tail and is decently formed. And as he sort of butts you and moves closer, you can see that he's almost trying to groom himself on your face.
No.
What are you doing?
Hold on. I've got this. I'll give a thorough inspection of the dragon scales. How are they looking? Are they
covered in mud? There are ticks everywhere. There are flies and fleas sort of in between the, sort of flying around and buzzing around a little bit. There's little bits of mud and dirt and even old blood and bits of food in between different bits of the scales. The claws and the claws are looking sort of almost softened in the mud. He's half sunk into this marsh. His wings are tightly packed to his body. And there's sort of mud caked across them. Not great.
How did the ticks do against well, actually, how did the dragons do as well when it comes to the...
They seem to be getting some purchase in between the scales. But the acid water, normally it wouldn't affect dragons, but in this state, you're not sure. As you're looking, just to aid the rest of you as well, at this point, Big Iris comes along with a huge bucket. And in that bucket, he's got sort of... They look like they're for polishing wood. It's not ideal, but they're like handheld wooden brushes with fairly firm bristles. And he's handing one out to all of you. So that you've got something to brush your dragons with.
I didn't know we were doing chores.
And sorry, go on.
I'd like to see how this works. I know we've got the brushes and that's a good fallback, but I'd like to start trying to prestidigitate a bunch of the mud off the dragon, see if that
I
works
have
out.
read prestidigitation for once and discovered something that I never knew.
Oh yeah?
It don't not clean people.
Oh.
Like clean
clean all soil and
It's
object.
clean all soil and
right,
object, no larger than 1 cubic foot. You can clean human clothing, but all these people who've been bathing with prestidigitation in D&D for years and years, it's not a thing. Because I did check, as I was going to ban it otherwise. And then when I read it, I was like, I don't have to. Your dragon is not an object and not to be objectified. Yeah. I should really have
One
the
thing I
rolls for
would
me,
at least
of course.
like to do if I can is start sacred flaming the ticks off. Just burn them
Yeah,
off
a
one
little
by
bit.
one.
You do manage a little bit, but you're missing more than you're hitting. Way more than you're hitting. And your dragon eventually sort of just looks at you and nudges the brush with his head. Like, do some physical labour, bitch.
Get the ticks off first and then deal with the mud.
Sidling past the gold dragon, looking a little cautious, is the second smallest dragon here. Quite beautifully formed. Appears to be the only one whose legs are like fully upright. They're walking with their body lifted out of the marsh. And they're quite prideful but very youthful. An amethyst dragon sort of snuffs at a couple of people, moves Sylve out the way with its nose, wanders up to Natani, raises her head, or his head, sort of budges you out the way a little bit, and then as it hefts past, sees Arya. And then in a positively, like a little puppy, just sort of gambles a little bit. As it little flaps out the ground, it's a little pathetic. But it's quite cute. And as it sort of gambles towards you, their very, very thin tail sort of pulls you in closer. As the dragon speaks almost quietly. It's the first dragon to speak quietly yet. And it seems a little hesitant as... Friends?
Yes, friends. Hi.
Keeper?
If you'll have me?
Mm,
Do you want me?
yeah. Cold. Very hungry.
Oh,
Wet.
sounds
So
good.
wet. Mucky.
I'm so sorry.
With that, she sort of shakes her head and splatters you with mud. Have fun. You've got yourself a puppy.
Wow.
Aw. Very, like, with clearly an expression of joy, sort of like wipe off the mud. I'll get you cleaned up, no problem.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
I'm sure you're very beautiful once we get all this mud off.
pretty. At this point, Dara, you'll realise that your dragon is a little simple-minded. Not incapable of speech or incapable of full sentences, but just not quite as beautifully articulate as that gold dragon over there. But definitely one of the better formed, although smaller. Like, there's nothing that sticks out as like that. Maybe the tail's a little thin, but there's nothing that sticks out as like that's dysfunctional. Whereas you will see as Greft is trying to get the huge black dragon to raise its wings, the dragon will sort of, get off me now. But as he does so and bats away with his wing, you'll see that his wing is tattered all the way up. There's loose skin and limp skin hanging out. It's really deformed. You'll also notice that the beautiful sapphire dragon who was claiming she was so wonderful seems to have one wing a lot smaller than the other. As this is going on, Twiggy and Patrick, you're probably together, right?
Yeah. Here's the surprise, Patrick.
Yes.
We were going to see dragons the whole time.
This is the best birthday ever.
Happy
And
birthday!
Twiggy, quite impishly almost, a dragon sort of jumps. It is the only dragon that is not walking, it is jumping. It thinks it's a frog, it seems. It leaps and lands, and leaps and lands, and gives a little flap of its wings, which seem perfectly formed, but minuscule. Like, they're not even, like, they're little spiral wings. They're like, on the big dragon, on the dragon. This dragon isn't a huge amount bigger than Emil's. As it sort of flaps, almost tries to fly around you. Sort of a, you'll do! You'll do! Yeah, you! Come on! You're brushing, yeah?
Oh, I guess, but I'm going to hop while I do it as well. And I will hop from spot to spot.
Wonderful.
Start brushing.
And you will see that the red dragon that comes with this dragon seems to almost be like looking after it or watching out for it. As definitely the biggest of the dragons that's chosen you guys, and not that much smaller than the gold dragon. A large looking red dragon. Third biggest, I think, maybe fourth biggest. Sort of ambles quite pridefully past him. He's trying to look quite sedate, gently moving through, and looks down at you, Twiggy, as you are looking after your little green dragon, and turns his face to you, Patrick. Yes, you will do most greatly.
Hi, what's your name?
The dragon's name is to be earned, not to be given. Soon enough, I'm sure.
Okay.
And yours?
What about now?
hesitates for a moment. You may call me Red for now.
Ooh. Hi, Red. I'm Patrick.
You think you can use a brush like that?
Sure.
He sort of lowers his head right down. Sort of a... It is difficult to groom under one's chin with such pitiful front legs. At this point you'll realise that though he is a very big dragon, his legs are not.
Oh, they look great to me. I'll brush in circular motions.
Like you're washing the side of a car?
Yes.
Great! I love that. Yeah, sort of at the couch.
Just a massaging motion, you know.
Ooh, I love that.
As you are doing so, Twiggy, a silver dragon sort of covered in mud, right? His wings, sort of one wing flapping, the other not, looking totally lost. He's very small. Sort of comes up towards you and looks around. As you look around, you will note that every dragon has a keeper except for three. Every keeper has a dragon, except for two. Those two being Alum. Is that his name? Alum and Natani. I'm going to change it every time, Laura. I'm so sorry. I keep picturing how you told me, and like Nutani, but then I say it wrong first, and then do
I
that.
put that in for me, not really thinking
Yeah,
for you.
I needed it. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, because I was gonna call you Natani, like that's how it was in my head, Natani.
Well,
Like the French,
just
Natani.
an E at the end instead of
Natani! Natani! Anyway, yeah, this silver dragon and a couple of others don't seem to have anybody to look after them. And Twiggy, as it sort of looks past you, sort of looks up and it opens its mouth as if to say something. Just, bah! Bah! And then he walks on past you. Bah! And then he runs up to the boat and rams it with his head. And then looks over at the little copper one, who also seems to be shouldering the boat. They're almost submerged in the acidic water. They look a bit lost.
My goodness.
Get
them out of there.
And yeah, as you look around, Natani, you'll note that only 3 dragons haven't been claimed. One is sort of looking over to you, but not saying anything, not approaching you. I'm really sorry. Did I not press that button for Aria's dragon? Sorry. It looks over to you, and eventually you hear quite clearly across the grass. You may approach.
I will do so.
Yes. We saved the best till last, didn't we?
It would seem so.
This crystal dragon sort of leans its head down. You'll note that medium size. The wings look like they're the biggest wings almost of any dragon. And her legs are sort of okay. They're a little small for the body. Although you will note quite quickly that the claws aren't perfect. Her ruff and her mane isn't quite fully done, but she almost looks like she should be able to fly. Like, she's really quite well formed. At least you think it's a she. She sort of moves her head in towards you and... Yes. You'll do.
I'm honored.
You should be. Do you have any food?
I'm sure food can be arranged soon.
Soon is okay. Now is better. Nods, and then within moments, as you look around, you will see that the hunters are coming out with huge wooden buckets with pieces of meat in it. It seems these were brought on the boat. They're not being hunted. They're a little preserved. They're a little like salted pieces of meat. But they do sort of start chucking them out in front of the dragons. And instantly, everyone's dragon but one will completely disregard their keeper, butt you out the way, pay no attention to you as they delve into the meat, like almost savagely. They pay no attention to their keeper. The gold dragon sort of gently nudges Sylve out the way. I must eat now. And then begins to eat with just the same savagery, but he was the only dragon who paid any attention to the existence of a keeper. Sylve sort of looks around and, oh, there's two more. After a moment, Melkor sort of, oh, I've just told you his name. The gold dragon sort of raises his head and they aren't fully formed yet, but if some keepers have some spare time. Tamara sort of raises her hand and, I'll help! Her sapphire dragon immediately, you most certainly won't! You're my keeper! And Tamara sort of shrugs awkwardly at Sylve, and Sylve's like, I'll do what I can if anyone else can help too. But they should at least get some food, right? Carson, the hunter who's handing out the food, and another hunter you haven't seen yet, with jet black hair and sort of black eyes, and really sharp jawline. He almost moves like a tiger throughout this arena. He looks sort of really formidable, like a warrior. Again, sort of tossing this meat out. Sort of puts it on the bank near them, and if they come for it, they can have it. And soon enough, the silver dragon and the copper dragon sort of turn around and begin sort of ambling towards the food and have a little munch. But it appears they are unclaimed. I'm just going to quite quickly go through the other 3 or 4 who we haven't. So Alum ends up with a pale blue dragon. Quite well formed, but very small. His scales are pale, almost as if they're lacking in colour compared to the other dragons. And there is also a big red dragon. It's quite large, but its wings are like clapped into its back. It's got almost no tail worth mentioning. Its front legs are tiny. And most importantly, no other dragon seems to have mentioned it, spoken to it, interacted with it. And you'll notice that although Rapskull is doing lots and lots of talking, he's sort of, aren't you beautiful? You're wonderful, amazing, fabulous, fantastic. What's your name? You don't have one? Okay, that's fine. I'll call you Hebe. And he has named her Hebe. And you will note that, like the silver and the copper, she doesn't seem to speak. But as everyone's got a dragon. And the dragons mostly all have keepers. I will return you to your cast list, which is now full. And I think that is where we're going to end.
James.
Yeah.
Looking at my art, does my dragon have 2 wings? Because the more I look at it, the more it looks like he's only got 1.
No, he does. He has 2 wings. The other one is smaller and folded in. They're not quite the same size. But yeah, he has a second wing. You're right, the art doesn't necessarily say. There's also a pterodactyl in your art. But apart from that, yeah. You chose it, not me! But yeah, with every dragon handed out, I think that is where we'll end. And we'll come to the timeless tradition of MVPs. Who got their dragon last? Laura, your MVP, please.
I'm really excited for this whole campaign. It's shaping up really nice. I'm really excited.
I'm glad.
I like the horrible, haughty sapphire dragon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No surprises. That dragon and Tamara are somewhat main characters. In fact, in the books, you start from Tamara's perspective. That was always going to be an interesting one. It's very difficult for me to voice a dragon and remember the voices of the keepers. They're all going to blend into one by the end, as you well know. Apart from Greft, whose voice hurts my throat. But good. I'm glad you liked the haughty one. I'm just going to go clockwise or anti-clockwise. I'm going to go anti-clockwise because McKenna went first on the characters. Jamal, your MVP.
So, I think it's a really interesting cast. There's a lot of good space for things here.
By
I have
cast,
to
you mean
give
the
a moment to
NPCs or the players, or both?
all of it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that.
But what I will, aside from the dragons that are looking like they're going to be an absolute piece of work, like set between all of them, all of our disabled dragons. The one thing I have to admit, I have to give this to as well. It was just a little moment, but it's like the boat being propelled along, and I'm just muttering like, "What the hell is that?" And it's like, you do well to not think about that. You do well to not think about that. Don't question it.
Yeah, Nothing's got his
It's like-
reasons to escape. I will tell you that over the course of the journey, you will note that Tarman has 2 frog-like big feet that work as like they can paddle him along and even pull him along the bottom if he needs to, and 2 more at the front. In his normal work, they would be completely concealed beneath the water, but in these more shallow lands, you will catch glimpses of them here and there. It becomes a sort of acknowledged secret. Lefterin figures that none of you guys are coming back, so it's not going to matter. Right.
So we've got a frog boat.
Yeah, but I mean, what I mean by Lefterin figures that you guys are not coming back is that even if you do take your dragon somewhere wonderful, you're not then going to just leave them and come back home, are you? Right? Is his logic. So it's not necessarily that you'll die, but just why would you go back? Right? You all had really good reasons to leave.
Yeah.
Josh.
I really liked how Patrick and Twiggy's friendship played out. Me and Michaela talked about it a little bit beforehand, but that was really fun. I really liked everyone's characters. I'm very much looking forward to interacting with them more. But my MVP, I think, goes to like all the different dragon personalities. I'm hoping you can remember which ones have which.
Well, it should be easy for me, for everybody, for all the NPC ones. For you guys, I'm gonna have to take notes.
Yeah, just put little notes under the pictures.
Yeah.
Or something.
I definitely know a couple of them. I mean, Jay's is very easy because what I've done is cut some of the cast from the NPCs. So there are more NPCs and dragons in the book than there are here. So I've taken the more interesting personalities of the dragons that were left that I've cut out and applied them. So Jay's got a dragon that exists in the book and is interesting, but the keeper's so boring I just couldn't be bothered with them. And obviously replaced with you. And Emil, Jamal has a dragon who, again, I know its personality because it's in the book. The other 3 I'll work on.
Well, I mean, I love them. So
good.
Yeah, they
Well,
were MVP.
I hope that nobody feels put out, or like, hey, their dragon's playful and mine's haughty or whatever, or like my dragon's
like
not that bright.
Juxtaposition between mine and my dragon.
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely didn't want to give you a silly dragon or a stupid dragon. That would have been a nightmare. I knew that I had to pick the most intelligent of the 5 to be yours. I do want to say that, like, not really that many people. I was very worried about silly or stupid characters, as you know. But I think you did really well today at being stupid without being stupid.
You always worry about my characters, and then I play them, and then you fall in love. So it's not good. It almost makes up for you not trusting me with anything. Almost.
I guarantee that somewhere that wildfire spirit says it gives off light. Jay, your MVP.
Yeah, I mean, whole cast's need to love dragons. Dragons' favorite thing in D&D is dragons. But like, I mean, the Twiggy Patrick dynamic that was so funny, particularly where Michaela just goes, "I punch him in the gut."
Yeah, I love that. The bopping with the hammer and the stick. They're trying to look over the edge of the boat for the eyes. The fox and Twiggy sort of responding where, we're trying to look at the eyes, and everybody's like, no, there's a flying fire fox there. Yeah. I think you're right. It was a great little friendship.
Yeah, and then little thing that I liked in particular was how Silver earlier was like very nervous about being picked, and then it's the gold dragon that picks her.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of the whole book. Is like 2 minutes in when like she's like, what if no dragon picks us? And then like this dragon sort of steps forward and like butts out the way like Graft and Tamar and all these like strong hunters and interesting people, and it's like, I want you, the little girl. And I think that's, slightly odd and slightly dodgy, but also it's really cute. I think it's a beautiful part of the story, seeing their friendship. Michaela, MVP.
Yes, like everyone said, loves the moments being the dragons was so sweet. I love the hopping green dragon. Oh my gosh, so perfect. And
I have to say, Michaela, my note says Jolly Green Dragon. That's what it came from. That is literally my only note for it is Jolly Green Dragon. I knew exactly how to play that straight away.
Yeah. My one MVP in particular is that the moment when I thought that the little runty copper dragon was the one speaking all eloquently before it was revealed it was a gold dragon.
My bad. No,
was
she
like,
just
"Oh,
made
this little
noises.
runt."
Yeah. Oh, they. Yeah.
And I like how Arya is already like Mama Bear.
I am going to reveal the dragon's genders. It's going to be very hard for me not to. Some of them should be obvious. I think some of them even say female on the actual character's name.
Yeah.
Dragon's name. So I think it's fair to say that if it says female, they're female. I haven't given any genders to your dragons. Also, why? Oh, you haven't all got access to your dragon tokens? Let me just fix that one. I remember.
What? They have tokens.
Of course they have tokens. And as of next week, they'll have stats and HPs.
And HPs.
Oh.
Yeah, ruh-roh. Not only that, but if you try and ride your dragon, you'll be in big trouble. You will be in big trouble. So yes, they'll have little stat blocks that will grow with you. Isn't that sweet?
You just said
You'll have stat blocks that grow mostly with you. I've mostly based them on the primal companions from Ranger Beastmaster. For guidance on HP and armor class and strength of attacks. In terms of type of attacks, none of them have a breath weapon. You've heard of the mighty breath of dragons. You haven't seen it. And it doesn't look like any of these can produce it. Over time, obviously, they might become a little more dragony. But right now, they're just big dogs. Get out! Mm-hmm. It's fucking moth! Get out of here! Shoo! Get out of here!
Leave it alone.
I have a couple of MVPs. I too really like the friendship between Twiggy and between Patrick. I was quite glad that you guys knew each other. Originally, in the creation, I was like, I don't really want any of them. They should all know of each other, but nobody should really know each other. And Jay was the first person to say, like, my character stuff from Treehog, and I was like, oh, well, that's different and interesting. And obviously, then you won't know anyone. And then the different walks of life that you were all from, I thought, maybe not. And then you two both had tattooed backgrounds, and I was like, oh, no, that might be interesting. And I had already decided that Tats was going to know Willow. Was going to know Twiggy. Just because I needed a way to segue in Tats and Tamara to the main cast, if you like, to get them involved with you guys. Obviously you'll all make friends with specific keepers, and I really look forward. Like, I know you guys are all dying to interact with the dragons and see what the dragons are like and have pet dragons and be dragon keepers and interact. I'm really, really interested to see your relationships with the keepers. And all my MVPs were those. I really enjoyed Patrick's interaction with the Orange brothers, I'm going to call them Case and Boxer, the twins, when they were amazed at the wildfire spirit, and he just sort of joined in with their amazement, even though it's his, he understands how it works. I really liked that Natani didn't actually go to a keeper, she went to Elise, the expert. That was a real, like, that threw me because I didn't have art for her. It was another really interesting step, and I thought that was a really interesting conversation. Also, thanks, Alora, because it gave me a chance to give you guys some information about dragons. So I'm sure you're all just as grateful. And I really liked my favourite part of the whole session, actually, I'll be honest, was the interplay between Jay and Jamal and Sylv and Alan, with Jerd and a couple of others sort of chipping in. I liked the opportunity to see a bit of who your characters are, but also just reveal more of the NPCs. For me, these NPCs are characters I know and love from a book that I adore. So if you imagine, like, that you were running a campaign and you're playing, I don't know, members of the Harry Potter cast or Lord of the Rings characters. Like, that's what I'm doing right now, and it's amazing, and I'm loving it. So I want you to know that I'm having just as much fun as you guys, if not more. I hope the cat session came across well, but for now, that is where we're going to say goodbye. So that's not what I say. That's where we're going to end. So if you guys would like to say goodbye...
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We shall see you soon.